Welcome to the Modern Husbands podcast, where any combination of Dr. Bruce Ross, Christian Sherrill, and Brian Page host national experts who share winning ideas to manage money in the home as a team. I'm Brian Page, founder of Modern Husbands. Sometimes our listeners want more support than a podcast can give. Individual or couple support, which I provide as a certified financial therapist, accredited financial counselor, and fair play facilitator. Details can be found at modernhusbands.com. Today's episode is the first of two with our guest, Professor Leah Ruppanner. We explore the complex concept of mental load, its impact on women and families, and practical strategies to achieve greater equity and understanding in household responsibilities. Discover how to measure, manage, and support mental load to foster healthier relationships and personal well-being. Enjoy the show. Dr. Ruppanner, this will be the second time I've heard your lovely voice. The first was listening to your book all the way through, which I was able to download on Spotify Premium and loved. Thank you so much for joining Dr. Ross and I today.
Thank you for having me.
Listeners, you're in for like a really, really great conversation. We're going to break it into two parts. So this is the first of a two-part conversation. There's just too much to talk about to jam it all into 30 minutes. So just know that, if you're listening to this and then after you love it, which I know you will, check next week and you'll see part two. But we want to dive straight into it. Obviously, as I brought up, I listened to your book, Drained. It's called Drained. So go ahead and bring your phones out, put that in your browser. You can buy it on Amazon. The book is called Drained. I love it. I recommend it to anyone in a relationship. And I'm going to say particularly men, because, as husbands, our responsibility is to try to better understand, for those of us who are in heterosexual relationships, the women in our lives, so we can be more supportive, better understand the challenges that they face, and then help them in those challenges. And obviously, women are going to naturally gravitate toward it and love it. But what stuck out most to me was this like underlying current of compassion for the women in your voice as I was listening to it. It was almost like as if you were a therapist. Was that by design? If so, why is that?
I love you for saying that. Okay, so I need you all to know that this beautiful voice will talk to you for 9 hours or however long the book is, right? You get to hear this. And I authors sometimes get to record their audiobooks and sometimes they don't get to record their audiobooks. And I was lucky enough to get to record my audiobook in Nashville, Tennessee with Michael Bublé. He was in another studio. I know. And I was in another studio. And so it's so clear that this book was destined for greatness. And in particular,
I don't know who that is, but I know who you are.
His audience is so clearly my audience as well. Michael Bublé is like a crooner. He's a singer. He's like he does a lot of Christmas music, and his audience, I think, is like, women 25 to 55. That's my target audience too. So we had great combination. But I love that you said this to me. And yes, of course, I stalked him while he was there. I mean, I can tell you that whole story later on. But I love you saying this to me because my good friend Hee Jung Chung, who's a professor at King's College in London, when she read the book, she said to me, "This is a love letter to women. Like you are writing a love letter." And you're saying something similar, which is like, I can hear the compassion and love in your voice. And that is intentional because I've spent 20 years plus talking to women about their experiences. They share their hardest, deepest, most difficult stories with me. And in addition to that, they feel an incredible amount of shame and guilt and overwhelm and burnout and stress. And my goal is like, how do I help you connect into some of the research to know that A, you're not alone, B, what you're carrying is heavy and we haven't had the language for it yet, and C, that like there is hope. I mean, there is a solution. There is a way to lighten it if we can connect you into what will work for you. And I know we'll talk about this in the podcast, but the solutions aren't going to be a singular silver bullet, but part of it is how do we start to say like, I'm going to reverse gaslight you and say, I see what you're holding. You're not a micromanager. You're not anxious. You're not, some sort of like type A personality. Like you're actually in the system that has made it incredibly hard for you to do this job and feel good in the job of being a woman and a mom. And how do I help you see where the landmines are, where the traps are set? And then maybe step around them. because that's empowering. But actually, in a position where actually I think people feel a lot of pressure, but not a lot of support. So I want to be one of the supports. I want to shine my love and light on you all.
Oh,
That's
you
my
did
purpose.
it. You did it.
That's awesome. And I love the term reverse gaslight us.
Mm.
So let's get into it then. Let's just start with, how are you defining the mental load?
Okay. So I think we got the definition of mental load a little bit wrong. And fortunately for you, I'm a researcher. So I'll give you the definition that I think is a little bit more accurate.
Yep.
In the paper that I wrote with Liz Dean and Brendan Churchill at the University of Melbourne, which was published in 2021, we basically argued that the mental load is emotional thinking work necessary to keep your work, life, and family running. We think about the mental load as just being this kind of straight cognitive labor. Sometimes it is, right? Sometimes it's as simple as like the milk is running low. Let's
Yeah.
put the milk on the list and we tick it off. We check it off our list. But oftentimes what happens is we go, okay, the milk is running low. If everyone doesn't have milk in the morning, actually they'll have a difficult day at school. Are my kids doing well at school? They seem to be a little bit overwhelmed. And in fact, actually, if they don't get enough milk, what about their nutrition? Will they end up with osteoporosis? You have to get as much calcium as you can between now. But should I do oat milk or should I do a dairy? And is it actually environmentally friendly for me to buy almond milk, but it doesn't have the calcium? But what about the water? Wait, what about the water? AI is coming, and actually, generative AI is here. Am I going to have a job? And what about that? And what's environmental? So if, as I'm doing this, if you're finding that your mental load does this, it goes from something that's like this, and then it starts to ping around to all of these things. That's because it's emotional thinking work, and it's tied to the people we love the most in our lives, including ourselves, our family, and ourselves. It's invisible. You do it internally, which means you cannot see when people are doing it. You may be doing it right now as you're listening. It's boundaryless, which means you carry it with you everywhere you go. You don't bring your undone laundry to work and start to fold it, even though maybe that'd be a good and efficient use of your time. But you do bring that mental load with you to work, into the bath, onto walks. You're bringing it everywhere, and it's enduring, which means it never ends. It's tied to the people we love. Parents would talk about this as like treadmill tasks, right? Like one thing comes and then the next. It's never ending. And so those three characteristics make it this very unique type of labor. It's not like housework. It's not like childcare. It's not like our paid work. It's these two characteristics. And I'm talking to you about it at home, but also you carry a mental load to work. And so we can talk about that a little bit more too. But my book is doing an introduction at home, but I have a website called Lighten Lab, LIGHTENLAB, where you can take a free assessment based on the research. I don't want your information. I'm not asking for your email. I'm not selling it on. But I want you to start to think about your mental load is this emotional thinking work you're doing to keep your work, life, and family running. You do it at home. You do it in your life. You do it at work. The composition looks different. It'll be different in the morning than the afternoon. It'll be different on Monday than on Friday. It'll be different in December than in June. And I want us to start to measure it like we would our steps or our blood pressure or our sleep score, and start to think about, where is my mental load right now? Where is it going? And what does that mean for my life writ large?
Why do you have to make things so complicated? That's the question. That's the question that a lot of men ask women, and you just explained it. That sequence, that chain of thinking that comes with the love and care, with these million decisions that we have to make throughout our days to care for our family. You just did a bang up job explaining it. If you're listening to this and your husband is asking you, why do you have to make things so complicated? Just send that clip. Anyway.
Thank you.
So getting further into the mental loads, then you say there's 8 types. Can you tell us what those 8 types are?
You bet. So this came from the research, right? Everything I'm doing is empirically backed. I am a scholar. And so all my stuff I'm putting into the world is based on the research that I'm doing actively in my lab. So one of the things we did is we started to have conversations with hundreds of parents around the world. And we were hearing that there's not just one type of mental load, right? We often think about the mental load as being the list making or the work that we do to, make sure that we have the milk in the fridge. And that reduction of the mental load to that type which is a type of mental load, right? This is what we call life organization. This is staying on top of the planning and the tasks. That's one type, but you do that at work, you do that at home. If you're thinking about, did I send that email? Did I make sure something got into the mail? Do we have everything we need? That's kind of that life organization and making sure everything's happening. That's the remembering the mill. But it's not the only part. You also do emotional support, mental load. That's when you're kind of checking in on friends, family, and coworkers to make sure
That's the
they're
heavy stuff.
That's the heavy stuff. That's the stuff where you're scanning. You're
Yep.
scanning to see, like at the dinner table, is my kid okay? What do they need? What's going on? There's a subtle change in their facial expression. This is the work that mothers talked about caring the most of. This is the work we've socialized women into doing. But it is actually work that men find valuable, that actually is enriching.
Yeah.
Right? That men in the interviews would talk about, like, I want to be emotionally connected to my child. I want to be emotionally connected to my partner. I want to be different to my own father, who was aloof and disassociated. And this is work that is very valuable work, but often goes to women, but actually men are increasingly stepping into and is very valuable within the family and the workplace.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll keep going. 3 is relationship hygiene. This is maintaining strong social connections. At work, we would call this networking. Thinking about, who do I have in my life that's right? Who do I need to achieve my goals? What kind of bridges do I need to build? But you also have to do that at home. You have to make sure grandma's invited to a family dinner, figuring out if your kids have the right friends. And this is that work of, like, making sure your relationship is running in a smooth, cohesive way. It could be in your marriage too, right? Making sure your partner's happy. That's the kind of sticky glue work.
And before you go on, I want to tell the listeners, we're going to dive into detail for each of these in part 2 of this podcast episode. So if you're like, I want to learn more, you're going to. So anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Yay. Magic making. This is the most divisive. This is, how do you make events feel special, right? Like that work. This was the work that, like, women either loved or loathed. They loved to do the special, Christmas celebrations or Easter or whatever, making summer feel magical for their kids, or they absolutely hated it. They're like, I hate that I have to do an elf on the shelf. I hate that I have to do a handmade Christmas card. I hate this work. Dads talked about, this was work where women's standards were too high. They didn't see the value in what was being done in the house. Why are we doing it this way? But they also knew that women were doing this work for them, that people were creating magic around them. They did do some of this work too, in terms of, like, I want to have a weekend away where it's special with my family. And the thing is, sorry, I'll keep going on this, but magic making becomes the most destructive when you have to do relationship hygiene work for people you don't like. When you are trying to create magic for difficult people, or people that actually don't appreciate it, or you just frankly don't like them. And that's when it becomes emotionally heavy.
I want to talk more about that in the next episode, because I think of all of the 8 types of mental load that you defined and put them into these subcategories, that was the one that I think a lot of people relate to the most. So anyway, all right, keep going.
Absolutely. Okay. Dream building, that's making sure everyone has helping others fulfill their passions and ambitions. So you can be doing this is another one where dads would talk about, or men would talk about, if I invest in my dreams, my family has more. Giving my dreams, ambitions, more fire brings more into the family, and it's valuable. Women would talk about, my dreams have fallen to the bottom of the list because what I've done is put everyone else's dreams first. And it's almost like their dreaming muscles have been, like, quenched. Like they just had to reactivate them. And they would talk about, I'd say, like, because part of my audit is, like, start to activate your dreams, right? Start to figure out where you want to go. And so a lot of women would say, like, I am just actually trying to make it to tomorrow. Like, I can't think about where I want to be in 1, 3, and 5 years. And so my goal on this is that we start to see that actually women's dreams deserve investment, energy, resources, time. And how do we start to put more into that? In part, so women can dream a lot in the ways that men already do, and in part in the ways in which women did dream before family came in, care obligations came in. So how do we start to rebalance our dreaming so that everyone has access to their dreams?
Have you read Stephanie O'Connell's book, The Ambition Penalty, yet?
No, but tell me more.
It's essentially about all of the different ways in which it's more challenging for women to reach their career goals. We had her on the podcast last week or the week before, and it's another must read for men, particularly if your wife's career is really important to her, because there are a lot of things that men need to do to support their career that women don't necessarily need to do for men, because there are more obstacles that stand in their way. But that's a whole separate conversation. But it's salient to me too, because my wife is ambitious inside of her career. So anyway, go on. Didn't mean to. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I love it. And I actually think I'll be curious to see what you all think in your conversations you're having. I think one of the ways to help unstick this mental load within the family is in part to start with women's dreams, because this is a language that men understand, right? This is a language that is like, is not difficult for them to say, this is where we're going to go. Okay, how do we get there? And to support you.
I agree.
So I'll be curious to see if y'all agree with that statement that I'm making, that this, instead of coming in with the labor, right? Like, okay, we have this unequal division of labor. What are you going to do? I want women to come in with, this is my dreams. Here's where I want to go. Here's what I'm trying to do. Even if it's as small as like, I want to learn to play the guitar, or I want to go for a walk, or I want every day to have 8 hours of sleep, or as big as I want to go for the next promotion at work, or I want to become president of the United States. God knows we need her. So it could be the range. And I think starting with that and then trying to fit the labor around that, like, okay, here's where
I like that.
What do
I
we
like
need?
that idea. Yeah.
What do you think?
I think I'm going to be reflecting and writing about that a lot, because that was probably one of my primary triggers, for when I say the levers that I pulled to help myself internally adjust and understand like what I needed to do. But and Bruce and Christian and I were talking about this in one of our previous podcast recordings, because we all married high achievers and we find that attractive. So we all look at, the women in our lives as being like these strong, ambitious leaders. And it's something that we love about them. So part of supporting that isn't just that we love them, it's also that we love that about them and we want to support it even more. So I love the fact that you brought that up as in maybe a door opener for all of the other things that are messy in the home.
Absolutely. Because I think one of the things women feel like they can't do is identify. They talk a lot about guilt, about I can't take, that actually those resources need to go back into the family. That like, if I don't know, buy myself a $15 sandwich, then my child won't be able to have enough money to go to college, or they need orthodontics, or they need the braces, right? Like they're making those kind of leaps of how do we keep everything in so that everyone else can have what they need for their dreams. And it's at the expense of women's dreams. And this is one of the things I think has to this is what I think my purpose is like, girl, stop, you deserve. And also do men of the world, you don't feel this way. Like you probably don't even, this might be foreign to you when I say this, because you haven't been socialized to actually always put yourself second down the list. You've been told, invest in yourself, and that goes to everybody. Do more in your family.
And it's your responsibility.
Absolutely.
Which is a whole separate thing that men have to go through.
Absolutely. You two are speaking two different languages. So she really feels bad about taking the $7.99 out of the bank account, because she's trying to think about how that goes back into the family. So how do we make everyone see that we're in two different worlds, right?
Right.
Sociology is our superpower. Get ready.
Right. Yeah. I heard that a lot in the book. Yes.
We have to change the message, because like culturally, like sacrifice and motherhood are like synonymous with each other.
Yeah.
And so we have to change that. And I love this. Like, let's look at all these different types of mental loads. And I imagine too, they're not just happening one at a time.
No.
Right? Like like your research is showing that they're ongoing, they're constant, they're overlapping as well, correct?
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Bruce, for getting us back on track. Thank you for bringing us back in. Okay. Yes. I'm going to give you 3 more and then I'm going to speak to this. The number 7, I don't know what number I'm at. 6 is this idea about individual upkeep. How do I keep track of myself? How do I make sure I'm at optimal fitness, health, whatever? Do I have time to read? Do I have time to, meditate? Do I have time to walk, run? Have I made the doctor's appointment? One mother talked about she had a list of all the things she was supposed to do for herself. She had to hide it because it was like she didn't have the time or the energy, right? So this is a mental load about Am I at optimal fitness, attractiveness, health, investment? Safety. Do we live in a world that's safe? Is my family safe? Am I safe? This was one that dads talked a lot about holding. They were making sure people were safe. This was also one that people of color would say, I can't drop this because this is risky for me if I drop this. Or people in the LGBTIQ plus, right? This is like, I am constantly having a vigilance or a mental load going to my safety and the safety of others, in part because we live in an unequal social world. So this is one that men talked a lot about holding. And then the final one is this kind of meta care. I wish we had given it a different name. So I'm going to call it meta because it doesn't make sense in Australia.
MTA.
MTA. Like
in meta care.
Meta. Like, and this is about like, what kind of worlds are we trying to live in? Am I a good parent? Am I doing the right thing? Are we moving in the right direction? What does it mean if we have a war? What does it mean for global inflation? What does it mean for AI? This is maybe where you end up doom scrolling, right? Like this is the doom scroll mental load where it's like, oof, wow, why do I spend all this time being upset about the world? Well, because you are running your mental load energy and thinking about, here's the world I want to create. Here's the world I see reflected back to me. It's a cognitive disconnect. And I am saying to you, we have told people that to be informed is to be engaged, but to be informed is to be exhausted. So I want us to stop some of that and start to think about, no, I can't be everything for everyone, but I need to figure out what's my contribution to this world and move away from just burning through all your mental load energy about being informed and start to take action, start to do little baby steps, because I think that will lead to a better social world for all of us. But to your question, Bruce, like you don't do these one on one, right? You don't move from life organization to relationship hygiene. You're doing them all simultaneously and they're peaking. They're increasing at some moments in time. They're decreasing. And so one of the things I ask you to do and not all of them are bad, right? Some of them actually bring in mental load energy. Some of them are things we love. Some are things that make us feel sense of purpose, right? We might spend them, but we get something back from them. And so that's one of the things I ask you to start doing. Start to build your awareness of, you're not carrying one, you're carrying 8. You're carrying them simultaneously. Some of them are good. Some of them are draining. Some of them are accrediting. Some of them are draining. Some of them are essential. Some of them aren't. How do you start to build your awareness? And then much like your bank account, start to call or invest and think about where you want to go.
I love that.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for putting a term like meta for the phenomena that I'm experiencing. I love these 8 types. And I think it helps define really where our energy is going then too in such a clear way. Getting into this more then, can you walk us through some of the pressures that are usually unique to women around household responsibilities, caregiving, etc.?
Okay, so this is my love letter to women based on my decades of research looking at gender inequality, but it's not at the exclusion of men. So I just want to say that for the men listening too, there's something to learn there, but there's also, so I talk a lot about social norms, right? That like sociology is this really unique way of thinking that actually everyone can activate. It's undergraduates love it because you're just like, go into the social world and see how people interact with you, right? Like it's very intuitive. And what we ask as sociologists, because many people don't know what sociology is this psychology? It's like it's even my family sometimes like, what do you do? Is what we think about is how individuals, whether they have the ability to do what they want to do or would do based on social norms. So how much agency do you have? I, as an individual, can I move through the world in the way I want, or do I bump up against systems, ways of thinking, norms, role modeling, workplaces that haven't evolved, policy contexts that haven't evolved that limit my ability to do what I need to do? The thing about the social norms and the gender norms is they impact women and they impact men, both at the detriment to both, but in different directions.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we always think like, oh God, it's bad for women. It's like, I have all this research that shows like traditional gender norms are bad for men too, actually. Yep. Because then all of a sudden the pressure on them to be breadwinners. I mean, talk about the pressure of being a breadwinner when you have inflation, COVID-19, stock markets that move, presidents that close trade routes, right? Like, and now you are supposed to keep your family safe, and you have a mental safety organization and invest in your own dreams to overcome this. And we have a paper that shows like actually men sleep better. Everyone sleeps better in countries where women have more equality, that actually sleep is higher quality and people sleep better. They sleep better. And in part, I think that's a mental load thing, right? We're now in this together. It's not just on me. We're in this combination of factors. So these social norms actually tell women that they need to be empathetic, deferential, caring, put people second, and they encourage them, right? Those are values that maybe are good, but we need to share the value. And men, they need to be breadwinning, they need to be stoic, they need to be hardworking, they need to have all these things. So one of the papers that has kind of illustrated this, or people love that we did that keeps showing back up, is we did this paper about dirt blind. Are men in fact dirt blind? Which is this myth we thought about it. So we took a room that was same room and we made it clean and messy. And we showed people a picture of this room and asked them to rate whether it was clean and asked them to rate whether it was messy. And what we found was men and women rated the room that was messy as equally messy and equally as clean. So if men couldn't see mess, they would look at that messy room and they would say, oh, it's really clean, right? So we show in this paper with science that men see the mess. They're not dirt blind. Then the question comes, well, okay, well then why do women care more? Why are women's standards so much higher? And one of the things we thought was like, I think it's about this expectation that you're going to be punished, that if someone shows up to your house unexpectedly, like they're going to see you. They're going to judge you in a negative way, right? The judgment's coming. And so we asked them, we told people that no one saw the same room twice, right? So we randomly assigned people to these rooms and we said, this is Jennifer's room or this is John's room. And what we found is that even if the room was relatively clean, they would say, Jennifer needs to clean that room up more urgently. And if someone dropped in unexpectedly, a coworker, a boss, a family member, a friend, they were going to see her based on the status of that room as less hardworking, less likable, less capable, less competent. So basically less human. So this work that came through with Sabina Cornrich at NYU and Sarah Tebow at UC Santa Barbara shows that actually women aren't gaslighting them. Like they're not lying when they say, I think there's going to be a penalty for me because of the state of my house. And Darby actually has similar research, right, showing cortisol levels go up. Like we're not the only ones to show that. But simultaneously, men aren't lying when they say to women, I think I'm going to be punished at work if I show that I'm a caregiver.
Yeah.
And we have research on that too, that yes, we sent CVs out and yes, they're punished by the recruiter. They're punished by the algorithm. And in men dominated industries, if they had a caregiving gap similar to what women had, they were punished more than the women, right? So there's two things going on. And this is why I say social norms are highlighting like this system is fucked up and it's not letting us thrive. It's not working for men and it's not working for women. And it's not a gender war, but it's going like, hey, if we can see these things, we can decide whether we want to tackle them, whether we want to solve them, whether we want to drop the thinking, whether we want to move differently in our worlds. And that's my goal, for you to start to go, that's interesting. I don't know if I want to participate in that anymore. Because the truth of the matter is our houses are messier now than ever before. There's research showing that, right? Because we're busy. We're busier.
Yeah.
Right? And men want to step in care more than ever before. And so both things are happening. Our actions are kind of moving counter to the norms. So let's start to shift the norms.
Earlier, you said we have to start keeping track of all these thoughts that are playing into our mental load. And so you ask couples to participate in a mental load audit. Can you explain a little bit more about that and how we can do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So 2 things for your listeners. One is, as I was trying to build out a solution, I wanted a solution that was not going to add to your mental load. I didn't want something that was heavy. I wanted something that was strategic and light and easy to do. For those of you who love like a workbook, you can do this literally pen to paper if you want to see it visually. But if you don't, it can just be about raising awareness, right? A little bit of thinking work. The second thing is I heard enough from couples that like this is going to cause conflict. right? Like this has the potential to activate a fight that's been happening for a million kajillion years. And so what I want to say to you is you can do this on your own too, actually. You don't have to do this with your partner. Doing a mental load audit and figuring out where your mental load is going, whether it's aligned with your goals and your dreams, who you need in your life, what are your values. You can do that individually without bringing your partner into the conversation. And in fact, what you might find, I'm curious what you think about this. What you might find is that the person you need to help you to get towards your goals, I'll tell you what, might not be your partner. Like that might not be the person. That doesn't mean like you got to divorce them, but it's like you might need a different team, and or you might be thinking that your relationship is going to solve all your problems. But actually you might need to be a little more strategic in who you bring in as your support staff, who you bring in as your team. And your partner might not be the person who's going to help you get that promotion at work. They might be, but they also might not be. Okay. So
can you give us an example of that? Like of who you might bring in?
Yeah. So like, let's say I'm thinking, okay, I'll do my own life. Okay. I'll do my own life. I have a goal a couple of years ago of writing a book to talk about the mental load. When I break that down in terms of what I need to do in terms of to achieve that goal, my husband's not really in it, honestly. He has no fucking clue what I'm doing. Right? Like he's not in it. He's there to be like a little bit of the cheerleader on the side, but really what I need is to go in and figure out who do I know and how to talk to other people who have done this thing. I feel like I'm swearing so much on your thing. I'm sorry about that. But I also forgive the audience. But then I also know what I need from him is like emotional support every once in a while when I'm having a wobble, or maybe a little bit of additional help when things go tough and I can't do what I usually do in the household. Like those are the clear asks that maybe I need. I get a little clearer on my asks, but really what I need is someone else in the world who's written a book before, who knows the agent. I have to activate different networks, and sometimes I don't want to talk to him about it because he can't understand my world, right? But if we think of that partner as being always that kind of person through which we filter everything, our dreams and our goals, and we don't have that team around us, it's too much pressure on one spot. I'm curious what you think about this from y'all's perspective. What do you think? How do you see this?
No, I love it. I mean, I think you're absolutely right when you can't expect the relationship to be the end all be all. Like that puts way too much pressure on each other.
That was what I really stuck out to me in the book, was when you did such a good job basically explaining, look, like our minds can drift in a million ways, and we have to be really strategic about where we allow our minds to go. And I feel like that we do that within the systems of companies. We do that within the way that we work out, but we don't really focus on that as much with our minds. And looking at our minds as not just a means of productivity, but a means of love and care. And I like how those all were coalesced together through a mental load audit, just to understand, like with the end in mind, how is it that we can bring forward like the most efficient way to use our thinking in a way that gives us the most love for ourselves and for other people. That was well done.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Yeah, because I mean, when I say your goals, like we're talking productivity goals, I'm giving you a productivity goal, but my goal could be like, I actually want to have more time with my family. I want to spend more time with my kids. And I would hear that a lot from dads in particular, right? Like, I want more of this time with. And so that can be I love, Brian, that you're saying the goals can be about love and care, right? And so then the questions are, how do you align so that happens? Like, and that might not be your partner either, right? Like that goal might be about like, okay, how do we have more time that's uninterrupted or magical? It could look different, right? What does that look like? How do we have time so that when we're recreating or we're in leisure, I think this is maybe matchmaking time. We're doing that together. We're doing that strategically. We understand why we're there. We understand that this is like a credit. This is coming back in and it's part of your goal. And so it's not helpful for me to be distracted while we're trying to do something that's actually really important to you, right? It sets expectations and values too, so that people know that time, what that time means, what that time is meaning to the other person. So if the dads are saying, I want more time with my kids, but then if I'm coming in super fragmented and stressed because it's a stressful moment, then that kind of taints the time too. So then how do we figure out how that time becomes as valuable and useful and like symbolically useful as it's intended to be? I just want a little more strategy in this.
You know, when we go about, like, for men, I think it's hard to give up the idea that we should work. Men think that we have to work longer and longer hours to earn more and more because that's our responsibility. So if, let's say that in the everyday marriage, if a woman were to approach a man and say, I need you to do more at home, like, a lot of men would take this as a threat to their own identity and responsibility as a husband, because you can't, it's a zero sum game. You're going to give up time at work to do more at home, which means, oh no, I'm not going to earn as much. So now you're going to feel like less valuable as a husband. But conversely, if you tell women, like, hey, we want you to do more outside of the home, could be a threat to their identity, right? There's a reason it's called working mom, right? Like, because the idea of, like, yeah. So, from our perspective, like, what helped me was my wife was like, look, I can make a great living also. Like, here's what we need, and this is another way to provide. And, obviously there was a lot more to the conversation. But if I were to say, hey, how is it, to our listeners, how can men approach women and say, I want you to crush it in your career, I want you to reach your goals and ambitions, I got this at home? Like, how can you convince them to let go? Because we went through this, because I was the one that initiated the conversation with Hope, and there was some gatekeeping, as there would be for anybody who's been doing things for 20 some years, of how you do it, when you do it, what minimum standard of care looks like, whether or not they're going to be perceived as being less than. That's all a process of this unraveling. How do you help men understand, like, this is what you need to say to your wife, and this is what the process looks like when you go through that transition process?
It's interesting. I when you were saying this, I was thinking like two things. First, I was thinking, like, as couples have those conversations and men are having the internal conversation of, like, okay, but if I do this, there's going to be a penalty for me at work, right? Like, yes, I understand, but I'm gonna have to pull back, and what that's going to mean is less money. I think being honest and saying that out loud, like, I actually I'm not resisting you, but I'm worried about this part over here. What do we think about that? Like, what does that look like? It could mean that if I work less, I could have less money. Right? Like, that's a fair conversation actually to have about the realistic trades, right? I'm not rejecting you. I actually think you deserve more of me, and I want more of me to come into the family. If I do that, here's what I think is going to happen for me at work. Do we have a plan B? Like, do we have a plan B if what I think is going to happen, it goes awry? So at least then we're making the strategic decision as opposed to an emotional decision, right? Like a not out of overwhelm, but out of strategy. So that's one. Two is like, because those would be couples who would maybe continue working. Your question's a bit more interesting, right? Like, what happens if I actually am saying, I think your career, I want to invest in you. You're the fast horse, right? You can do this. And I'm going to step in to do all of this, but you have to let me do it the way I'm going to do it. And I do talk to women in the book about, like, good is good enough. Sometimes part of it is because you've been socialized into this idea that, like, you are the only one who can provide high quality care. You're the only one who can know what your child will want. You're the only, like, in terms of childcare, we say to women, like, hey, your whole goal is to be a mother, and actually no one can care for their child the way you can. And I talk about, like, these standard questions we ask in social science about, like, can a mother establish a warm relationship with their child? Is it okay if a mother works? And everyone's like, yeah, of course. And then I say, what if you ask it of yourself? As a woman, can I establish this warm relationship? Is it okay if I work? You can find all of a sudden you're holding yourself to higher standards than you would everyone else. So there does need to be some unsocializing about that. There needs to be some good is good enough. There does need to be some stepping out and letting things fall apart. But in letting things fall apart, letting other people put it back together. Because what I hear too, right, what you're saying is, like, I want to step in and do this, but I need the autonomy that you have. And then, so it's like, so it's like women have been socialized from birth to do this, but then also the penalties coming to them. So I'm saying that to you two women, like I know that you're doing that in part because you've been told from birth, this is your job and you're the CEO of the family. And no other CEO do we ask to do all of this with no support staff. Like you're going to be the CEO and human resources and safety and finance, and everyone's going to leave you alone. It's like, it's an insane ask. And you, right? Like some woman in like Bloomington, Indiana, like, and you're going to have to be able to prepare your child for like COVID and environmental degradation. Wait, the team? No, you. It's ridiculous, right? And it just sets people up for failure. But sets you up for failure. And then simultaneously, we have social norms that judge you for that. So we have to dismantle both. We have to go like, it's okay. This is not all my identity and worth. If I don't do this perfectly, I am not a failure. And my whole worth is not tied to this. It's one piece of it. Like I can't have everything hinging on that because that's too much pressure. So, and then I have to let others step into the mess. And it might not go the way I want, but it is okay because it will go in a way where people learn and people grow. And maybe over time they'll get better or different, or I'll learn something. I might learn something from how you do it, right? That I wouldn't have known. So drop some of that socialization and then open up for some curiosity and prepare for some disasters. And then if the problems arise, let other people solve the problems to the best which you can.
That is a key point. So we are, before we go, and I have kind of like one more thing, but before we go, remind listeners, where can they purchase your book, Drained?
Okay, everyone, you can find Drained everywhere. I've been wandering around all the US states, like buying the book. But it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, it's everywhere. You can go to lightonlab.com too if you want to see the types, if you want to take an assessment and see what's there. And you can always find me on every single social telling you how great I am: LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. So if you want a little bit of an update of what I'm doing, how I'm thinking, or whether I'm in my pajamas or not, it's there.
And I got to say, it's included on Spotify. If you want the audio book, if you have Spotify Premium, if you're paying for Spotify, you have it at no cost.
Oh, and I have a podcast called Misperceived. So if you want to just hear me rant at you for 15 to 17 minutes once a week.
Yes, please.
All right. So for our next episode with Leah, she's going to share mental load conversation prompts you can use with your partner to hold conversations that lead to more equity in your home, and a little bit about the challenges of what it's like to go through breast cancer in America and how pernicious that can be, with everything beyond just the thoughts and the scary thinking that can kind of like go into that, but the challenges that people face with health insurance companies. Dr. Ruppanner, thank you for the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the second half of our conversation. Share this episode with your friends. It only takes a moment to forward it on in a text, but it makes a world of difference in building our community. Thanks to our co-host, our guest, and of course, to all of you for joining in today.